Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about Slinky Dog Dash in Disney's Hollywood Studios. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about Disney and anxiety, we talk about sensory issues, and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider at Disney World, like me. Now, Slinky Dog Dash is such a fun little coaster, but it's actually a little bit more intense than you might realize. So without further ado, let's dive into those details. This Slinky-themed thrill ride contains high speeds, 2 launches, and of course, as a coaster, its fair share of twists, turns, and drops. Now let's start off by talking about those thrill elements. Now it might surprise you that Slinky Dog Dash actually reaches a top speed of 40 miles per hour. Now this actually makes it faster than every coaster in Magic Kingdom. However, as we all know, speed does not necessarily equal intensity, and personally, I would actually put this attraction somewhere between Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain in terms of intensity. So just a little bit more intense than Thunder Mountain and maybe a little less so than Space Mountain just because it doesn't have that darkness element. Now on top of the speed, there are a couple of other elements that we need to talk about. So on this attraction, you will encounter 2 mid-ride launches and a 50-foot drop. So starting with these launches, they're not maybe as intense as some other launches we have seen in other coasters around Disney World, but they're definitely an interesting element that does add a bit of intensity to this ride. So when you encounter the first launch, you're already picking up speed towards the beginning of the ride. And really this one is just kind of an abrupt acceleration. Like I said, you're already moving and you really just feel yourself picking up speed at a pretty rapid pace. Now the second one I would say is a bit more intense. And the reason for this is that you actually come to a full stop, back up slightly, and all the theming and elements around the attraction start revving up, so to speak. So you've got some sound design, you've got some practical effects that all kind of amp up that anticipation for the launch. And since you're starting from nothing, the launch can feel just a little bit more intense and faster because you have to go all the way to about 40 miles an hour. Now again, I wouldn't say that these are super intense. There are definitely some launches across Disney World that are more intense than these, but it's definitely worth knowing if you're expecting a very basic Thunder Mountain type of roller coaster. Slinky Dog Dash is a little bit more interesting. Now when it comes to that drop, just to put this into perspective, it is almost exactly the same height as the drop on Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So coming in at 50 feet tall, it's definitely nothing to sneeze at and absolutely can give you some of that stomach in your throat feeling. However, it's certainly not as intense as, say, the 80-foot drop that you have on Expedition Everest. And as far as other outdoor coasters go in Disney World, I would say this one is pretty standard. However, it's definitely worth mentioning if you just don't do drops, you really don't like them. I just wanted to mention that this one does have a pretty substantial one, so be prepared for that. Now, very quickly, I just wanted to touch on the fact that we do have a single animatronic on this attraction of Wheezy, our cute little penguin friend. He's really not in your face or scary or shifty or anything like that, but I just wanted to mention it in case there was anyone out there who really doesn't like animatronics, just to know that he's coming. You'll find him at the end of the ride and he will serenade you as you prepare to enter the unloading station. Now moving right along, let's talk about those ride vehicles. So what you'll find on this attraction is pretty standard for a coaster. We have a 5-car train, each car consisting of 2 rows and seating 2 riders per row. Now on top of that, you also have individual lap bars. Again, this is very standard, very similar to what you'll find on other outdoor coasters in the park, like Expedition Everest. And to me, because there's no overhead component or anything like that, these restraints aren't super confining, at least in my opinion. Now, another thing that really plays into the non-claustrophobia of this attraction is the ride time. Now, this attraction clocks in at only 1 minute and 57 seconds long, so very short. This is even short by roller coaster standards, so if you're concerned about feeling claustrophobic or concerned about the coaster in general, it might be encouraging just knowing that you will be on and off this ride before you know it. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. I am so excited for this ride. It's actually been a while since I've hopped on Slinky Dog Dash, so let's go ride it together. You'll find the entrance to this attraction in the Toy Story section of Hollywood Studios. Now, this is a great attraction to really see what you're getting into before you hop in line. You get a great view of the coaster before you even step into the queue, and almost none of it is hidden from view. So if you really just kind of want to get an eye for the coaster and see what we're looking at here, this is a great one to look at before you hop in line. Now, once you do enter the queue, you will end up in this outdoor area. There is a little bit of covering. There are a couple of fans here, which is great, but overall, I would definitely say this ride is notorious for having a pretty long wait time, and it is very, very hot in the summertime. Now, after winding your way around this section, you will enter a little more of a covered area. Again, there is no AC here. It is still very, very hot, but it definitely has a more solid covering from the sun, if that makes sense. And once again, you will just wind back and forth in this area. Now, of course, the theming is amazing. As always, this queue really makes you feel like you are wandering around underneath this cardboard box of a Slinky Dog toy. And even though you probably will be in this line for quite a while, there is a lot to look at. So look around and enjoy. Now, after winding back and forth underneath this box, you will end up in this other little area that again is mostly covered from direct sunlight. You'll see some cool props as you wind your way around, and there are also a couple of little screens that get you prepared to board the attraction. Now, after snaking your way through this area, you will go around the back and make your way towards the loading station. A cast member will ask how many are in your party, and you'll get sorted into lanes. And of course, I'll make a note here that with all outdoor coasters like this one, where you sit on the train can really determine what kind of experience you have. If you're sitting towards the back, you might be in for a bit of a wilder ride. It can kind of whip you around a little bit, pick up speed a little bit faster. And of course, if you're sitting at the front, it's a little bit tamer of an experience. So just keep that in mind as you're taking your seat. Now, once boarding this attraction, the coaster will set off, and before you know it, you will be into your first launch. Now, again, this one doesn't feel too extreme, but you definitely can feel yourself picking up speed pretty abruptly. Now, this launch will throw you into this turn and down this slight drop, really setting off this coaster. You'll go through a series of twists and turns that are pretty standard for other coasters you may have been on in Walt Disney World. Of course, this one has a little bit more of a bounciness to it, being, of course, Slinky Dog themed. And thematically, it is just such a fun coaster. Very cool, very out of the box, and super fun. Very quickly, you'll find yourself at the second launch. Now, like I talked about before, this one is a little bit more interesting. You actually do come to a full stop for about 15 seconds. And after coming to this stop, you will actually drift backwards just a little bit, getting you ready for that launch. And of course, all of the elements around you are spinning and revving up. There is some cool sound design here, but I'll definitely just point out that for me and other people who may have some sensory issues, it can feel like a lot, or at least feel a little bit intimidating knowing that you're about to fly into a launch. And of course, after a few seconds, this attraction does throw you into that launch and you accelerate all the way to about 40 miles an hour. Now, this is probably the most intense part of this ride, and right after the launch, you will find yourself soaring over this really tall hill and down the highest drop in this attraction. Now, like I said, this isn't too terribly intense, at least compared to some of the other bigger drops in Walt Disney World, but it's nothing to sneeze at either. Now, from here, you will just continue with some more bouncy maneuvers, some more twists and turns that are super fun and not too terribly intense. And before you know it, this 1 minute and 57-second ride is over. You will pull into the loading station, but not before being serenaded by Wheezy, our cute little squeaky penguin friend. And with that, the ride comes to an end. And there we have it. What do you think about Slinky Dog Dash? I personally find this one a little bit more intense than I think people give it credit for. However, because this is a newer attraction and it is very smooth, some people don't find it intense at all. It really just depends on the elements that you'll find on this coaster and whether or not those are things that will bother you. And really quick, I wanted to give a special thanks to Attractions 360 for once again allowing us to use their footage. Unfortunately, my camera cannot withstand those high speeds and coaster maneuvers, so having a great look at this ride and the actual track is so helpful for letting you guys see exactly what to expect. Now, of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.